people get overwhelmed and they just go, oh, it's too hard. I just want to do my trade. I want to do what I'm good at. This is really challenging, so I'm just going to park it over here. And what happens is, obviously, as you know, that compounds, right? And you can get yourself into a position where you may owe a lot of tax and you haven't provisioned. And then that's a challenge that it's difficult to overcome and takes a lot more time and planning. So that's, where people like your specialists come in to help and support you to get that data and then make those decisions in an informed way.
Now, we all know that running a business can be really hard sometimes, and sometimes we just find ourselves in a bit of a mess. We've got great systems, we've got data coming everywhere, but it doesn't make sense, and things don't always fit neatly into the spots that they're supposed to. And sometimes we just get too busy to clean that and manage the data that we have. That way we can't make decisions, we don't know where we're heading, we get ourselves in a mess. That's when the stress starts to happen, when we make bad decisions, and we want to avoid that. So today we've got a special guest for you, Sonya Corkery. She's going to help us understand, but also what we need to do to fix some of those issues that are happening with the data in our business that are out of kilter, holding us back, making wrong decisions. Going to go through some simple steps on how to clean up our data, because data is critical to decision making, but we often get things out of whack and mess. And we don't want to turn this into a huge exercise. We want to make it clear, concise, and structured so that you can have a smooth operation and you can concentrate on running the business that you are really good at. Sonya has a lot of experience, lots of tools in her kit bag. She's a business owner, a wife, a mother. She spent decades streamlining her own business, which is Clear Plans Consulting, the family business. And through that consultancy, she's discovered a lot of the issues that we're dealing with today. And she's also discovered the fixes for plain English. And we're going to, really get some benefit out of this conversation. Clarity about how we structure things going forward. She's helped a lot of business owners take back control, understand what's going on in their business, and move forward. A lot of real world experience, a lot of methods, proven methods, but simple methods to help you clean up your business, clean up your operations, and fast track to the success that you really want when you started your business. So, Sonya, welcome to the business behind your business.
Thank you, Paul. Excited to be speaking to you.
Yeah, look, it's exciting because, and it's not the accounting nerd in me that's excited because we're talking about numbers and data, but I'm excited because it's a frustration that a lot of business owners have. That's a frustration. They're often in business because they're good at something. They want to make a living out of it. No more than a living. They want to really do well with the skills that they have. But we've got these issues that we have to have data. We have to have systems. We have to have compliance. And that's where things get messy and go wrong. Why is that so?
Well, I think that it's a lot of the time, as we all know, we don't know what we don't know. And so we can be bombarded with a number of different programs, people's experience. And so we're trying to take information from multiple sources and try to work out what works for us as business owners. Now, it could be a trade-based business versus a hospitality business, but ultimately the fundamentals are the same. And so what I try to do is actually simplify that down for that business owner and say, this is a base structure is what we can implement or what you should need. And anything above that, could be something that's just an added extra. But ultimately, there are systems and processes out there that can do a multitude of things. So why would we have, 5 different programs when one will do, essentially? And what is the program that we're using and can we get the most out of it? Is it appropriate for our industry, and how can we align that to make sure that we're getting the information and data succinctly and in a way that we can read? Because some people are very graphical, their eyes glaze over and they get the P&L and the balance sheet come through to review every month. And so they need that information in a way that speaks to them, that they understand and can utilize freely. And if you're having, multiple staff members utilizing these business structures, systems, processes, it's got to be in a way that is palatable for everybody. And so we get overwhelmed because there's just so much out there, Paul. Like, there's so much to choose from in this day and age, right?
Absolutely. We've got so much choice. I remember when I was very early on in my accounting career, we had effectively one choice of computer package accounting software for the small business owners to use. Now we have a multitude, but we also have thousands of other add-ons that work to help solve particular issues with our business or make that more streamlined. And it just gets a bit out of control, or we use the wrong tool, which you've mentioned. Before we sort of look at like why we can set it up and how we can clarify it, what's the biggest issue with not having clean and understandable data for a business owner?
Well, as you know, data is taken in a historical manner. So we're looking at what's happened in the past and trying to forecast forward for the business. And so we need to utilize that data to be able to help us identify trends or anomalies or problems. And so that we can, go ahead of time and kind of cut those off. If we're going to have any issues, we want to make sure we're addressing it far beyond that time. So we need to be able to have the information in a clear manner so that we can know and understand it, and we're getting it early enough so that we can make those decisions. Because as you all know, in business, one of our friends is time. If we can get ahead of something, it allows us to make those decisions earlier and lessen any negative impacts or identify where we can get the most out of something. And so we'll look at trends in businesses, in industry, and identifying that through the data. And as I said, some people prefer graphical, and that's great, that's fine. But allowing us to pre-plan, not only for the next 6 or 12 months, but potentially for 5 years and beyond, depending what our long-term plan is for the business.
So you mentioned a couple of things in there about planning. Most people think, I think a lot of business owners I've talked to have thought that data is only there for compliance, so for tax reasons, for government reports. But you've mentioned that whole idea of planning and forecasting and making decisions. Why is it so important to think about the value of that decision making?
When we're looking at our business, we all got into business for a reason. I'm broken for employment. It would be very challenging for me to try to ever go back and work for somebody else because I just love being my own boss, essentially. And so I needed to make sure that there was longevity in what I was doing. I needed to make sure it was going to last. A lot of people just get frustrated and they might be a tradesperson. They go out one man with a van, as we say. But you need to know and understand, how long can you make that last? How much do you need? Where is the money coming from? Where is the business coming from? And if we don't effectively plan on what we want to achieve, it's very challenging to be able to navigate our way there. And so, okay, well, if I need to bring in $500,000 worth of business, how many leads do I need to bring in and convert to generate into that $500,000? And then what of that would be a percentage of profit? How do I navigate that information to be able to put aside money for taxation? Do I need employees? So there's all of these things that come from that information. But if I don't set an outcome or a plan or something I'm working towards, how do I know that I'm on the right track? How can I measure where I am and where I need to be? And that's what the data gives me. It gives me the pinpoints, the benchmarks of, yes, I'm on track or I'm falling short of where I need to be, and then what do I need to do now to bring that back up to where it needs to be, essentially. So I love the strategic plan. I'm all about the strategic plan. My background is planning, so I do love it. But the data just gives us that, yes, we're on track, and to fulfill that in ourselves, to say, yes, I feel good, I can sleep tonight because the money's going to be there, versus I don't have money to pay wages this week, what am I going to do? It's pretty important stuff.
So I'm guessing, I'm not actually guessing, it's a very much an educated guess based on what I've seen in 30 years of accounting, is that when the data is not right, the decisions you make are going to be wrong.
That's correct. Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. And if it's not up to date enough, it's challenging to make a decision. If you're looking at your accounting software, for example, and it's 6 months out of date, it's very challenging to be able to make the right decision. You just don't know what's going to happen. And people, and I understand why they do this, but it is a challenge, make decisions on their bank account balance. And that's what they do because that's the only data that they have at the time.
And often that data is incomplete because, like you mentioned, it's not telling you about how many leads you've got coming in, what margins, how much profit you're actually making on a sale, how many sales you actually need to make a level of profit so that you've got cash in the bank. It's a lot of information that you can miss just by managing data on the bank statements.
Yeah.
Uh,
I know. It's hard. And that's what happens, Paul, is people get overwhelmed and they just go, oh, it's too hard. I just want to do my trade. I want to do what I'm good at. This is really challenging, so I'm just going to park it over here. And what happens is, obviously, as you know, that compounds, right? And you could get yourself into a position where you may owe a lot of tax and you haven't provisioned. And then that's a challenge that it's difficult to overcome and takes a lot more time and planning. So that's, where people like your specialists come in to help and support you to get that data and then make those decisions in an informed way.
So we've got you mentioned there are a lot of systems out there. We often have multiple systems working in our business and data going crisscrossing everywhere, not tidying up. Where do you start to clean up your data?
So there's a couple of main avenues I would look at when I'm looking at a business and I'm doing a bit of an audit on a business. Now, obviously, financially, an accounting software is a great thing to have. I think a lot of people get past that point of progressing past an Excel spreadsheet because it's just so cost effective now. You can get a basic account with an accounting software for not that very much each month. And that'll be able to give you that reporting aspect quite easily as well. We talk about the bank account structures and making sure that, you look at things like possibly a profit first model. There's a great book out there by Mike Molowitz. If you haven't read it, something I would suggest you look at. And having that coupled with that accounting software makes things extremely visual and easy to look at quite quickly. And then we're talking about the actual operational running of the business where, you would have a workflow system. In a trade-based business, it might be a Simpro or a ServiceMate or something that can also report to you and give you some data on the actual lead generation of that aspect of your business. And so I would say at least those three things. And then we talk about, if you do need for compliance to store information, we look at cloud-based software such as maybe Box or Dropbox or somewhere that there's information can be accessed from anywhere. But, now even in your Office 365, you have the ability to have that cloud-based storage as well. So you don't need to have a lot to be able to run your business. And a lot of these little plugins, say Stripe and other programs that can allow you to take payment quite quickly and get that money in as quick as possible, they integrate with these programs existingly. So it's not like you have to add a whole new thing, for your business. It's not like 20 years ago where you went into the bank and you had to set up a whole FPOS and it was a whole deal, right? The great thing about this day and age is there's so much more available and it's so streamlined. But after the initial setup takes place, it's just maintenance. That's all it is just inputting that data correctly and in a timely way so that whatever you're pulling is pretty accurate.
Yeah. So on a couple of the last points you mentioned there, set up correctly, streamlined maintenance. I've seen a lot of instances where businesses haven't taken the steps to set up their software correctly. What's the risk of doing a software setup for a business owner?
So when you're in business, one of the first things I really like to talk to a business owner about is what their value of time is. Their time versus dollar. So, is it a $20 an hour task, a $500 an hour task? Where is your time best spent in your business? And usually, I'd say 9 times out of 10, it's actually building the business itself. So giving yourself a task to say, set up a brand new Simpro, for example, which would take you weeks to have it to the standard that you're probably expecting, versus paying a fee for somebody to come in and implement that for you, getting the information how you would like it to run and look like. It's just so much cost effective in the long run, and you can do so much more with your time essentially to build your business, create new leads and get more sales, which would then justify the cost that you've just paid. And so we get caught up in the doing And some people do need to physically do something themselves to learn it, which I totally understand. But most of these programs have great frameworks in the background, so you can click in and actually literally run yourself through the course in the back end, so that you know and understand what you're doing to actually operate this program. But for the initial setup, and maybe to import all of the data from your suppliers, for example, and make sure that things are built in a way that you can just click and build a job quite quickly, that to me, there's no better, time value exchange than to pay somebody else to do that, right? Like, we have a limited number of hours and seconds in this day, and we want to get the most juice out of this lemon. We want to get the best out of it. So let's implement somebody to do that if we can absolutely afford to, or if not, if let's build to that, make sure we have the money before we engage to get that program, so that it's already done. We already know that that's a cost we're going to wear.
Yeah, so I think the way you're describing it is we're actually investing in our systems to make sure that they're working correctly, they're set up correctly, and it's really just a streamlined process. Then we've got that simple to use data to help us make decisions. Now, you were talking about understanding your data before, and you mentioning that not everybody understands things the same way. Most traditional reporting is profit loss balance sheet, which I would say that probably 9 out of 10 business owners struggle to understand what they actually are looking at when they're looking at those figures. But a lot of the tools these days have a lot more, dashboard visual displays. How can that help a business owner?
Well, by being able to see those trends, especially in a graphical manner when you're looking at dashboards, I think that it can be broken down pretty simply. It's like, okay, well, this red column is our expenditure, this blue column's our income. We have an issue, our expenditure is more than our income. What are we going to do? And so it enables us then to make a decision to take action. And then essentially pre-plan, right? And so there's great programs out there now that even implement as a plugin, as I said, with our accounting software, where you can have that data emailed to you on a particular day every single month. So it pops into your email. You don't even have to log on. It's there in front of you. And it's in a graphical manner that you can just flick through in a couple of pages and go, yes, I'm on track, or no, we have a problem. We need to review. We need to do something now. And so it's almost like a little health check that we build in for people. Even can be down to a tick or a cross, or this isn't meeting the percentage we set and this is, and being able to, set budgets essentially for the business. We try to do that before the new financial year kicks in. So when we're getting that data emailed to us, it can be a single pager. It's really simple. People can know and understand it quite easily until they build that skill set to really get in depth down into the P&L and balance sheet and really understand what it is. But, we don't even have to log in now. You can have that all automatically sent to you.
So that's I'm just racing ahead here because it's just so much good content. I'm still thinking back to when I first started, and we had to just 18 months after the end of the year, we were still going through a business owner's bank statements to try and work out how much profit they made last year. We didn't have time to do a budget because the next year was already about to start, but we're now getting daily updates without having to press a button, telling us exactly where we're at. And you mentioned that real-time understanding of exactly where our business is at. Now, small business, medium-sized business, we've got an advantage because we can make a change very quickly. There's enormous value in having that data to say, right, okay, you need to change something. You can change it that same day. Huge benefit for a business owner.
But it's not only the financial, and I mean, you and I obviously come from financial backgrounds and we love it. Like I said, we geek out on the numbers, right? But when you're looking at an operational perspective of running a job, especially a larger project, and I can talk to this, so obviously we've got an electrical contracting business, turns over millions and millions of dollars doing these massive projects, but if you don't get that right in the build of the job and pull that data on a very regular basis, the labor component can get away from you. The cost blowout of materials can get away from you. And you're, halfway through the job and you're already in the red, but you contractually now have to finish this job and you're going to have to eat this loss, and can you afford to, or are you going to have to roll your business? Like there has to be a lot of structure in the front end to be able to make sure that you can forecast that we're actually going to make money. And so a lot of people get stuck or fall over when they progress from a, say a 5-person business into a 30, 50, 100-person business, because the costs are not always looked at on a regular basis, and things can get away. But that's what you're saying, medium-sized business, we can pull that back quickly if we have the data to make those decisions early enough. It's really important.
Yeah. So just to clarify, when we're talking about data, we are not just talking about financial data. We're not just talking about profit, loss, cash in bank. We're talking about data in the operations of your business. So yeah, as you mentioned, is this project on track? Have we spent too many hours already for the amount of work or the milestones that we've actually achieved? And sometimes as a business owner, looking at those dashboards, it can be a bit of a fright, because you realize, we've expended 90% of our budget, but we've only done 50% of the tasks.
Yes.
What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, obviously, as your business grows and you can't be across everything, that's when you're looking at, do we implement a position that can essentially run those jobs for us? And they have a meeting with myself. We talk about the operational aspect of the job, not only the operational runnings, the compliance, safety, but the financial aspect as well. Where are we sitting? What are we forecasting this week? Because we have to bill out this month what work has been done. When you're doing those bigger jobs, you've got to provide QA. You've got to justify the amount that you're charging. And so because it's already a pre-priced job, unless it's a variation from the original scope of works, you're locked in. Like, you need to make that work. And so we can't compromise on compliance. We can't compromise on safety. So what do we do? And that's where we need that data to make those decisions at the time.
So a lot of value in getting your data set up correctly, making sure that it is streamlined. And I guess the other thing that we haven't mentioned specifically, but making sure you do something with what the data is telling you.
Yes, yeah. The catalyst to make the decision, because even no decision is a decision, right? So you will continue on that trajectory until you make a decision to do otherwise. And we'd like to make a decision based on data and our gut feeling generally about things. The boys on site will tell you if things feel off, or if they, see that, people are resigning hand over fist from that main primary who's running the job. And so you need to make decisions and go, well, even though things are running okay now, do we need to think that this job might fall over because they're not running their business effectively? Which we don't have control over. We only have control over what we are doing and our contractual obligations to that primary. But we need to make sure that we see it for what it is, but don't look at it through rose-colored glasses, right? Like, the data might be okay now, but if you're getting a feeling that things aren't running well, you still got to be able to make decisions ahead of time, utilizing that intuition as well, that gut feeling we talk about. So I always say, make a decision on gut and data. You kind of got to get both working to make sure it's all systems go, because if the data's no good, then it's a no good. If the gut feeling's really bad and you're based on your experience, then make sure you take that into account as well. But yeah, you have to essentially make a decision to do any other thing.
So there's a lot of value in having that data there correctly, a lot of power in your decision making. So if I'm a business owner listening here, and I've gone through this conversation and I thought, my data's in a mess, I can't make those decisions, I can't get those reports and make those decisions daily. If I come to you, Sonya, what's the first step that you're going to take me through?
So essentially, we sit down, we have a lot of conversations around, we talk a lot about the why you got into this, what are you planning on doing with your life, what you want to achieve, because I always like to reverse engineer things back. That's, as I said, financial planner by nature. And so I want to look at what you're doing, and is that actually going to get you where you need to go? If it is, great. But what we do is then we go through and do a bit of an audit of the business as far as the operational aspects, the financial setup, the structures. We're working with your specialists, your accountants, solicitors, brokers, and we make sure that we align everybody on the same trajectory to where you want to go. And I will then go through, cut out any unnecessary expenses that you don't need. And instead of absorbing that money back into just the everyday, we're going to make sure we have a plan for that money to get you where you want to go. And so we're really kind of looking at multiple things at once when we're doing that review for you. And we will give you some macro level steps and what you need to do. And then we essentially will help you break those down so that you have actionable items every week that you can achieve to keep moving yourself forward. So you have the general just running tasks of the business, but then there's the actual growth of your business and your strategic plan. And that's why we make sure that your accountant is on board, your broker's on board, solicitors on board, so that you're protected, because anything you're growing needs to be protected as well, and that you know and understand the plan, and those guys can as well to get you where you need to go.
Mm. So that's a great strategy, a great plan, and also building a great team around, because it can be a very lonely exercise as a business owner. But the way you've developed that, you've got that whole team of I guess experts in the pocket to help you achieve your goals, the original goals of why you started your business, which is really important. Because look, if you can't meet those goals, then the question is, why are you still doing it?
Yeah. And as I said to you before, we were joking, like broken for employment, right? I don't want to go back and essentially work for anybody else myself. But what I want to do is make sure that business owner has choices and knows and understands what they're getting into. If your plan was to get 20 or 30 years down the track and sell your business and live off that money for retirement, we need to look at it objectively and say, what if that outcome doesn't happen because you don't have control of the market at that time? What if the business doesn't have the substantiated figures to meet the amount that you want to get on the market? So what if it doesn't sell? What other plans do we have? And so we talk a lot about that and educate the business owners on what other options there are, so that they can make an informed decision and go, right, well, I'm actually going to look at, building a bit of a wealth portfolio outside of the business with my, solicitor, my accountant, and all my strategist people, to be able to have something else, so that if this doesn't work out, or I've had enough in 10 years time, not 20, I have options. You know what I mean? Just so that you can do something else.
That sounds like a great way to look at it. I think, where do we start? I think if one of the first steps could be to reach out to you and have that introductory call. How would our listeners go about doing that?
So you can find me on all of the socials. You can find me online at clearplanconsulting.com.au. You can book directly through the website for a complimentary conversation, which is always good to talk to other like-minded people and other business owners. And at best, you'll have a great conversation, pick up some tidbits along the way. And then if you choose to work with me, fantastic. We love working with all of our fellow Aussies. But yeah, you can follow my content and maybe, learn something even from that along the way.
Great. We'll put all the links to Sonya's resources and how to get in contact with her and book in that discovery call in the show notes and also on the website. So that resource will be available to you. So make sure that you take advantage of it. Sonya, it's been a fantastic conversation, not just because I'm an accountant and a numbers nerd, but because you've given us some real practical advice and tips on why we need to get our data in top shape, and what we can do with that data to help us grow the business and achieve the goals that we set out to achieve when we started. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed this. I've learned a lot as well. Not so much, well, yes, I have learned a lot, but it's just reinforced some of those key foundations of why it's so important to have your data in place and the purpose of that. If there was one thing that you would encourage people to do, if they did nothing else today, what would that be?
I'd say if you haven't already read Profit First by Mike Mollowitz, that's something I'd definitely start with as a framework, just to get the basics in line. And I'd really reach out to your specialist and have a conversation about your plans, your big goal, and what that looks like. Because if they're not working alongside you and they don't understand what you're trying to achieve, it's very challenging to make sure you get where you need to go. So if you need help with that, please reach out. We'd love to talk to you. And thank you so much, Paul, for having me on. It's been a great pleasure today.
It's been fantastic. Sonya Corkery, thank you for helping us out on the business behind your business, and it's been an absolute pleasure.